Welcome to the Configure Price Quote podcast. My name is Frank Sohn and I'm the founder of No CPQ Consulting. This podcast is 100% focused on Configure Price Quote, also known as CPQ, and will provide you useful insights into this topic. My guest today is Boaz Meridor, co-founder and board member at Uptima. Uptima is a consulting company that's focused on Salesforce CPQ solutions and recently received funding from Salesforce Ventures and DocuSign Ventures. The company was founded in 2007 in Israel and is headquartered in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Boaz lives with his family in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm very excited to have him to tell us more about the investment they've received. Welcome to the CPQ podcast, Boaz.
Thank you so much, Frank. Happy to be here.
Very excited to have you, Boaz. So let's maybe start by telling me a little bit more about yourself and what you did before you started Uptima.
Yes, of course. So I started my career in Israel while still a student at the Technion. We Israelis like to refer to the Technion as the Israeli MIT. I then joined a medical device company called Luminous, and my job was to document production flow work procedures. If you believe it or not, I was, employee number 95. Mm-hmm. And after 1 year, when the company decided to implement their ERP systems, I moved to the IT and became a programmer. I spent 10 years there, in which I was the business application manager, and then finished with 2 years as the chief information officer. By the way, I worked with Siggy Wise, my co-founder, for many years before we both started the company.
Oh, very cool, very cool. And you have quite some experience in this area, obviously. Have you worked with other CPQ vendors besides Salesforce CPQ?
Oh, yes. So we started Uptima working with Big Machines as one of their very first partners. We were their exclusive partner in Israel. We did a project for a company called Nice Systems, which is one of the Israeli most recognized high-tech companies. That was a good project, very successful one. And as a result, they wanted us to work on projects in Europe and the US. And that was actually the trigger for us to start the company in the US. And this is when I relocated back in 2012 to the US to start the company here. And then after that, Big Machines got acquired by Oracle. We pretty much wanted to stay on the Salesforce platform where Big Machines did most of their business with until got acquired. And this is when we partnered with Aptus for several years. And then while Steelbray got acquired by Salesforce, we saw it become a very solid and then dominating solution. And this is when we moved our practice to be exclusively with Salesforce.
Excellent. And what do you personally consider the most exciting part about this investment from Salesforce and DocuSign?
So, for us, it's a huge milestone. It's a company that Siggy and myself started, two-people company back in 2007. And to get that kind of recognition from, two of the most recognized SaaS vendors in enterprise software, it's a huge milestone. But more importantly for the company, it gets us closer with both Salesforce and DocuSign. We have sponsors from the product teams of both companies that help us stay in front of the roadmap, and that helps us continue to innovate and bring our own go-to-market capabilities to augment their vision. So for us, it's really exciting, and happy to tell you more about this as we continue.
Absolutely. But before we go there, let me ask you one question that I ask almost every guest on the podcast, right? And that's, what do you like to do when you don't work?
Yeah. So, my wife and I are going to celebrate 20 years anniversary in 2 weeks from now. So we're blessed to have 2 boys, age 19 and 17, 2 girls, 14 and 8. So, the answer is actually the opposite. Work is what I do when I don't do that. Right? At least once a year, we like to travel to Israel to, meet with the family, our mothers. That's the tough part of being an immigrant, as you know. So that's something that we enjoy as well. And then on top of that, I have a Thursday night poker routine with my Israeli friends in the Silicon Valley, in which we're trying to take each other's $30 while we're exchanging life and work insights and jokes.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. One question I have to ask as a follow-up, right? So the boys are old enough that they can take care of themselves. What do you do with the girls, right? So 14 and 8, that sounds still like they want and need your attention. So what do you do with them?
You know what? I think the 8 years old take care of all of them, right? So it's girls are smart and intelligent, and I think it just works out really well.
Okay, excellent. And do they do any kind of sport or where you have to drive them around, or other activities that keep you busy driving back and forth, being the chauffeur, basically?
Right. So the two boys now have licenses, so that helps a lot. And at least as long as they're at home, which we hope will be for a long time, they'll help a lot with the driving. The old one, Tomer, did soccer for many years, and now he's coaching. So that's exciting. But sports, we learn sports in the US. Here it's all or nothing. So the commitment is big. But we enjoy watching sports together. I'm a Golden State Warriors fan. So that's a big thing at our family.
Oh, no, I believe you. So I'm a very big into the Denver Nuggets myself. But anyway, let's not go there. Let's talk a little bit more about Uptima, right? Tell us some more about the company. How big is the company now, for example? And where is it located? You have a couple of locations now, right?
Yeah. So we are now 150 people. And that's across 4 countries. Most of our people are here in the US. We also have a Center of Excellence in Canada, in Israel, and during the last year we built a growing team in the Philippines. So those are our major countries, and from those places we do projects mainly in the US, but also in Israel, in EMEA. Those are the key regions that we operate in.
And what CPQ services do you offer these days?
So, it's everything from planning and readiness, what we like to call phase 0, just before starting the implementation. We do this through our business transformation team. And then, of course, the end-to-end implementation. And following the project, usually we engage with our customers in managed services type of engagement under our customer success team.
Excellent. And you're focusing on specific industries.
Yeah, so we've seen a lot of success with what Salesforce is calling MAE, which stands for Manufacturing, Automotive, and Energy. But then, of course, Salesforce is very strong in everything technology. And recently, we see a lot of work coming from what they call CBS, which is Consumer Business Services. And it's interesting to see how even services companies are engaging significantly on CPQ transformation projects.
And what customer size are you focusing on?
So I think we see the most success with companies that are either hundreds of or thousands of employees. Usually these companies will have, large sales teams that needs those solutions. So while we are capable of delivering, very small projects for smaller companies, most of our projects are in that range of customers.
Got it. And then one question which I think is important for anyone who's having a Salesforce solution, right, is there are other solutions over there as well, like Logic.io, 3Kit, and so on. Are you partnering with them as well?
Absolutely. So, one of the trends that I'm seeing is that CPQ and, product to cash transformation is becoming standard for every company. And as such, there are definitely use cases in which you need those additional capabilities, specifically with Logic for complex configuration, as well as for headless configuration. We're seeing a lot of traction recently, and we're looking forward to start a couple of projects with them really soon. Specifically with 3Kit, we didn't do any work yet, but we think, together with Logic, we're going to get to that space really soon as well. And then as you continue to cover billing, which is something that we do a lot with Revenue Cloud that is now both CPQ and billing, there are use cases for tools such as RightRev for revenue recognition, usage tools such as LogiSense and others. So definitely we're seeing the need for App Exchange solutions to also support some of those projects.
Excellent. Got it. Now, I already mentioned that in the introduction that you received this investment, right? So now tell us a little bit more about the investment you received and what you think will be the impact to your customers based on that investment.
Yeah, so for us, it was really important to partner with Salesforce and DocuSign specifically. So, if we go back, 6 or 12 months, funding was something that many companies were able to accomplish. But for us, it was important to do this with our key partners, both Salesforce and DocuSign. And I think what got their interest and what drives us with this investment is the idea to enable what we call the everything to revenue framework, which means that customers are now looking not just to use standard CPQ for generating a quote by a sales user, but actually to monetize all those different touch points, if it's Service Cloud, if it's Revenue Cloud, if it's, B2B commerce, and then everything becomes an agreement under the DocuSign CLM framework. So having all those capabilities together is something that we've been working on for a long time. And I think with the investment, we're just going to be able to innovate further and accelerate this IP to our customers and partners.
Then let me ask one question, right? Just to have a practical example, as you already have customers that use Salesforce and DocuSign and that have implemented the solution using Uptima, right? So what will change for these customers with this investment, short or medium, long term?
So, we have one very large customers in the data services space. They used to have 4 different systems for which they would start a service case with a customer calling to just ask for something that cost money. And then they would do this in one system. To do the actual configuration, they would go to another system. Then they would bill on another system. And all those different things will happen on 4 different systems. So with the everything to revenue that we're building, we're enabling them to do everything just on Salesforce and DocuSign, starting from Service Cloud with case management, going through CPQ for configuration, bill for that, and generate the documents, the necessary documentation that is needed with DocuSign. I think we're going to see a lot of these use cases in the marketplace, and there are so many, different scenarios that we want to be able to cover, and that will enable customers to, 1, make sure that revenue is not leaking, and number 2, to accelerate and to generate that revenue faster, if that makes sense.
It does. So it's if I put it in my own words, I would say this is mostly to integrate the solutions more seamlessly. Is that the fair description?
To integrate it seamlessly and to cover more use cases, not just the classic sales user that needs to generate a quote, but anyone and anywhere that revenue may happen.
And then one question, which is important, especially the kind of customers that you have in mind, the manufacturing customers, is that they have other solutions potentially aside from CRM solutions, right? So it would be product lifecycle management, it could be contract lifecycle management, it could be CAT integrations, and so on, right? So what kind of solutions do you typically implement for your customers?
Yeah, so everything you said, there are use cases for everything. I think one thing that I would mention that, some type of customers that we haven't seen much in the past and are now implementing CPQ and quote to cash as well are both resellers and also companies that are doing engineer to order processes, especially in the Salesforce ecosystem. That used to be a use case which companies were concerned about trying to implement CPQ because you didn't know exactly what is the product catalog and what is the price of that product that you're now engineering to order or designing to order for the first time. But with tools such as Logic.io, also a tool called Valorix, which is an Excel extension as a user interface to Salesforce CPQ, there is now potential to cover way more complex configuration scenarios, including the engineer to order, which used to be kind of more sophisticated for a classic CPQ implementation.
Got it. Then one thing I wanted to ask you also, especially with all the economic woes at the current point in time, right? So talk about inflation, recession talk, and so on. I was just wondering, how do you see the current demand for CPQ solutions from your customers and prospects?
It's early to say. There is a lot of talks about what is going to happen, but I at least get the feeling that no one really knows. If I need to guess, I think as soon as the fog is disappearing a little bit, companies will actually want to accelerate some of those projects, making sure that they have the automation in place and then they can monetize across every touch point. And I'm hoping and I'm looking forward to see that actually increase the demand in our space, not just for us, but for everyone who is in the CPQ space.
Novo CPQ Consulting helps you with all CPQ related questions. For example, we help customers to find the best CPQ solution for their business, and we help customers analyze their current business process to determine if and where CPQ can help. Here it's important to point out that we are 100% independent and always look out for our customers first. This means for us also that we don't get paid by any CPQ vendor for providing them new customers or for any other services. We are focused on our customers and always provide the best available information to them. We also help system integrators to improve their services, and we offer the only CPQ industry subscription that provides monthly CPQ news and trends. We have many other services, so check it out today at novocpq.com. Send me an email to frank.sohn@novocpq.com to learn how we can help you with your CPQ questions, and keep us in mind when you look for 100% impartial CPQ advice. And what are the top 3 business requirements that you hear from your customers?
So I think it doesn't change much in recent years. If I need to kind of talk on the mega requirements and trends that we see, I think there are 3 that we teach our consultants to look for and to make sure that we're fulfilling those requirements. One is to keep it simple. It has to be simple. I think Salesforce Revenue Cloud does a fantastic job, even when solving for sophisticated use cases, for the system to be easy enough for users to use it. So that's number 1. Mm-hmm. Number 2 is to always look for the business process, right? It's not just about the system that you're implementing, it's the business process that need to be transformed. So it's, always avoid taking a broken process and just implementing it on a new system. Mm-hmm. And then make it scalable, right? Because we know what we see right now, but then 6 months from now, 12 months from now, we're going to have new business models. We're going to have new go-to-market challenges. Let's make sure that it's scalable. So those are kind of the 3 mega trends or mega requirements that we see across any businesses.
Makes a lot of sense to me, but since I asked for that, let me also ask for the 3 biggest challenges that your customers typically encounter in CPQ implementation projects. Is there anything that you have right now after all these years in the CPQ space?
Yeah, no, I think there is much more awareness around readiness, right? So if you're planning a CPQ project and you don't spend enough time understanding current state, future state, really thinking what will be the future architecture of the solution and what needs to happen as a prerequisite for that to happen, then that's going to become a challenge during the project. So we see more and more companies asking us to do what we call a readiness phase or a phase 0 to help them prepare for the actual implementation. The second thing is the constant change in the go-to-market, right? So you start with the idea that you're going to sell those products in one way, but then suddenly you want to switch to usage, you want to switch to subscription, and suddenly it's a way more urgent need than you thought originally. So in many projects, we need to be able to respond dynamically to those changes and make sure that we support those changes. And then the overall change management, right? So again, making sure that people know what to expect, most likely their roles and responsibility in the organization are going to change. If sales used to use a lot of sales engineers in the process, suddenly they can quote themselves, and that allows sales engineer to focus on more complex things. So all those changes need to be taken care of from the beginning. And what we do, at least for our customers, is we try to help them with change management through our business transformation team that is overlay to the implementation project itself.
And let me ask a more detailed follow-up question on this one, Boaz. So it's especially for larger customers, right? So when you have lots of users that use your solution, it's always a challenge to really educate the users on how to use the tool, and then to also be willing to adopt the changes that are proposed, right? What does your team do really well in this one that you think is very important for a customer to get the most out of a CPQ solution?
Yeah, so I think there are multiple layers for this. One is communication plan, right? So it's the worst thing that you can do is you can wait for the user acceptance testing to start communicate about the change that is upcoming. You need to have a communication plan going from day zero of the project, making sure that you're involving subject matter experts, insisting, by the way, on participation from sales, because in many cases, people will say, those salespeople, they need to focus on selling. They cannot deal with the implementation of systems. But we've been in scenarios in which, because of not having sales users participating in demos and key milestones during the project, they were actually surprised by the outcome and what we actually built. So in recent years, we know that we have to have their feedback, their input, their participation through that communication plan from day one. And then, of course, training and making sure that we're showing and telling in an iterative fashion throughout the project and not waiting for the last minute.
Very good tip. Now, let me ask you a couple of questions in a quick question and answer format. And I really want to understand, what do you see from your customers regarding interest in various topics? And let's start with product configuration. What do you see in that regard?
So I think the mega trend that I'm seeing, which I think is led by Salesforce, is the switch from configuring the product to configuring the deal, right? So instead of just focusing on what are the specific attributes of a specific product for me to build a bundle or a solution that I'm going to put on the quote, we now have the opportunity to configure everything that needs to happen on the deal cycle, right? If it's the terms and conditions with the legal side of the deal, if it's the product, the pricing, the subscription itself that will come after, every element of the, number one, the deal, and then the life cycle that's going to happen after, including the SLA and the maintenance, etc. You can now configure it, you can price it, and then you can bill for it in one system. That's a big change of recent years, that we're not just looking on the classic CPQ only, but the full product to cash cycle. For most of the projects that we're doing, the focus is changing, and we're now looking on the 50,000 feet of all the deal scenarios that needs to happen, and that's what is the thing that needs to be configured, not just the product itself.
Excellent point. Let me ask a next question, where you see customer interest regarding pricing in general and advanced pricing, which includes things like pricing optimization, potentially rebate management, and so on. Where do you see the interest with your customer base on this?
Yeah, so one thing which I think I'm starting to notice, and I don't think I'm the first one, is there was this big shift from one-time perpetual pricing towards subscription pricing. I think there is a little bit of what I call subscription fatigue. So many companies are, asking for your commitment for a monthly fee or a yearly fee, and that becomes something significant over time, specifically in business-to-business scenarios. And then instead, there is a lot of shift into usage and other more sophisticated pricing methods that gives further flexibility both for the seller and the buyer in terms of how they're engaging. So we see more and more usage. We see combination of usage and subscription. So when customers are asking to do this according to usage, but then sellers are asking for some level of commitment that is included, we see more and more of those scenarios, especially with the technology companies that we're working with.
Great point. Then let's go to the next one. What you see regarding customer interest in quoting and document management.
Yeah, so I think document management is a very, let's say, abstract term. What we do mostly at Uptima is we help with the contract lifecycle management, right? So it starts with a quote, but then it being translated into some type of a contract. It can be an order form, or it can be, if I'm a distributor or I'm a manufacturer, it can be a sales agreement, right? So I need to quote not just for a specific transaction, but for an actual distribution agreement that includes rebates potentially with my resellers or with my agents. How do I generate a document that govern all those relationships? So we're seeing more and more of that. With Manufacturing Cloud, by the way, which I don't know if the audience is familiar, Manufacturing Cloud has the Revenue Cloud or CPQ capabilities, as well as the ability to maintain those sales agreements and forecasts. And that combination is becoming more and more interesting, specifically for manufacturers.
Got it. Now, last question on this topic, right? So there's a whole bunch of these hype terms out there, and I will name you a few here in a minute, and would like to understand from you, where do you think from all the terms that I mentioned, where you see the highest interest from your customers? So it's artificial intelligence, machine learning, visual and virtual configuration, billing, e-signature, and so on. What is most interesting for your customers, and why is that?
So I think for the immediate projects that we either have ongoing or in our pipeline, I think absolutely e-signature. On the contract lifecycle management, we're seeing more and more demand for some kind of artificial intelligence. Visualization, I think it's coming. I think we at Uptima need to go further with our capabilities in that space through partnership with companies like 3Kit. And what else was there beside visualization?
Billing.
Yeah, no, billing, absolutely. Billing is, we don't see specifically in technology, but also for manufacturing projects in which we cannot cover billing. Now, ideally, we want to cover this inside Salesforce and taking more of this process to the front end, just so we can make it a shorter process with less friction. But even if we're not implementing Salesforce billing, then we have to take into consideration how those quotes will become orders and how those orders will turn into billing schedules and actual invoices, because otherwise you're ended up with two systems that need to be reconciled, and that's specifically in the subscription world, that's becoming tough. In subscription and usage, you have to really make sure that you're connecting quoting and billing.
Very good point. Very important. I forgot one question that I wanted to ask you. That was data analytics, right? So, and using more data also during the configuration of the product and of the deal, right? So, how important is that for your customers?
I think everyone wants to do it. I think there is still a lot of ground to be covered. In those spaces, one of the challenges is that companies had made significant investments already in business intelligence and data lakes and things like that. And in most cases, their current strategy is to connect with those already existing systems. But I think over time, with offerings from Salesforce, such as Salesforce Genie, that was announced at the latest Dreamforce, I think we'll see more and more potential for specific use cases to offer even further intelligence inside the platform. So this is something that we really look on to see how we can leverage that for our customers as well.
Excellent, but unfortunately, we're already coming to the end of this episode. Hence, my last question: what's a good way for interested listeners to contact you or your team in case they have any follow-up questions for you?
Yeah, so all of us can be reached at LinkedIn, of course. That's probably the easiest. There is also a contact us page on our website. And of course, you can also email me directly at boazm@uptima.com.
Excellent. As I said, we will have all this information in the show notes. Boaz, thank you very much for making time for the CPQ podcast today.
Thank you so much, Frank. I enjoyed it a lot.
I'd like to thank everyone for listening and hope you learned something interesting today. If you like the podcast, please go ahead and rate it on iTunes or share it with your friends and colleagues. In the meantime, you can find us online at www.novocpq.com. So long, everyone.